morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are listening to this. Welcome back to Strange Track with your boy, Unpopular Back Gamer, aka Dante. We are here always with my boy Patrick. Say hello, Patrick.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
And we
Why
are
did I say that?
uh,
Can they talk back?
they can talk back via
Okay.
via in the comments. Hey, leave a comment below if you want to talk back to Patrick. You can even tell them, "Hey, f you." So, anyways,
Hey.
continue.
No, don't do that. I don't think I've done
I,
anything to do that.
I welcome it. I welcome it as the person that's head of the shadow. So,
Mm, I feel attacked. I feel
thank you,
unsafe.
thank you for coming back. We were off for a week. Granted, we had every reason to be on last week to do our Father's Day episode, which it was the weekend for Father's Day. As you may know, life happens. Life happens to both of us. So we had to push it back a week. So our Father's Day episode is occurring today. And then next week, we're going to do our Juneteenth episode. And even though Juneteenth just occurred this previous week. So we're going to be back like at least a week. But, things occurred. If you're listening to this and you're just like, why the hell did y'all wait a week or whatnot? I had a death in the family again this year. So
I don't know.
I
You
had to
didn't tell
take
me
time
that.
for that. I told you
Okay.
that. I think you probably like fully forgot because I didn't like fully broadcast it.
Oh,
Because
okay. Okay.
it was one of those situations. It was my grandmother. We knew she wasn't doing too
Oh, yeah.
well.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we knew she wasn't
Now
doing
you can
too
say F you
well.
to me because
Oh
I
yeah,
totally was a bad friend there. So
100%. Put it in the
I'm at the low.
comments. F you, Patrick. If
At, at least I've earned it. At least I earned it.
yeah, so yeah, she passed away. I had all my family was in town and all that stuff, so I had to focus in that direction. So life was life in last week, but we roll with the punches here on this channel, and we move forward. Um, I was grateful to have that time to be able to bury our grandmother and have spend that time with my family and everything. But life is such where we remember those who helped us become the people that we are currently today, and we move forward as best as we can. So that's
Well
what we're
said.
doing. We're moving forward with what we have been doing, and we want to talk about fathers in Star Trek. And I know some of y'all are thinking like, well, fathers in Star Trek, that's not necessarily weird, quote unquote. That's not strange. But I want to focus on um, how they're depicted, how a lot of the fathers in Star Trek are depicted in the episodes, because I've noticed with my research, and I don't know if Patrick will agree with me on this or not, that there wasn't a lot of great fathers in Star Trek up until Deep Space Nine. Patrick, how do you feel about that?
I know. I totally agree. I think there is the caveat that our TOS rewatch or full watch is pending, so
Yeah.
you guys might know like maybe Chekhov's dad showed up and he was awesome. I don't know. I don't know if that episode is out there. Um, but no, I think there's a lot of positioning of making the fathers antagonist, and sometimes not even like the antagonist that a parent can be sometimes
Mm-hmm.
in your life in a way that makes you better. But like
Mm-hmm.
this person made you worse, and you've been overcoming what they did to you. Has been now. I felt like most of the fathers were talked about, or at least the vast majority of them were talked about before DS9, and we got Cisco, and he changed the game up.
Yes. Yeah. And that's I definitely want to start with Cisco and his son Jake, and their dynamic. Mainly because I want to start where I want to have like a baseline of what a good father would look like, especially in the Star Trek universe. and then I want to go towards the other direction of like the other fathers in Star Trek and see like where they might not have met up to the same standards as Cisco, or even just were not that great, not even close to how Cisco was with his son. And I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
there are going to be certain characters that we are going to miss. Just like with the previous episodes, this is going to probably be an episode where we're going to have a part two to this and discuss it more in
Uh,
depth, especially when we rewatch TOS. Go ahead, Patrick.
you're being way too subtle.
Uh,
Me and the unpopular black gamer went on a hunt to find the fathers in Star Trek, and that list kept going.
oh, it was very
And
extensive.
it got it got to the point where it's like, oh, but what about the fathers that were fathers of not even main characters or reoccurring characters, but
Mm-hmm.
just were fathers that showed up on the show, and maybe they showed up with their. It's like, oh my god, no. So like, yeah, we'll do a part two, but that's because fathers in Star Trek is an endless well.
It is,
It
and
feels like.
even to your point earlier was that like we are still going off of young minded memory for the TOS series, and we haven't done the full rewatch yet. So
Right.
when we actually do the rewatch, we may end up figuring out, oh crap, that was a notable father in that. So we'll put that down on a list to discuss in part two. So don't
Hmm.
don't castrate us for that. Please don't.
Or for anything.
Like give us some grace here. Well, no. Castrate Patrick in not remembering
What?
that my relative passed away.
Oh.
No.
I still feel like that's a little bit extreme of a punishment, but I get the spirit.
Hey, put it in the comments. F you, Patrick. So, we're going to move forward. And, like I said, start off with Cisco, which is probably, to me, some people may argue with this, to me, the most notable dad in Star Trek. Because this is the first time that you actually got to see a major character, I should say a major father figure. We saw mother figures, like especially in TNG with Beverly Crusher, uh, actually have her son on board and their dynamic. But we want to focus on the fathers now, and this is like one of the first times that you actually saw a father actually be very a really good father to their child on Star Trek, and that's with Captain Cisco. So
Hmm.
personally, I love their dynamic ever since the very first episode, and he showed a lot of understanding, even though he was the head of a space station. Even before that, when he was the second in the first in command, I should say, for I forgot the name of the ship. Now that I'm thinking about it, the ship
Oh, the one
that
that got blew up by the Borg?
yeah, and why his wife ended up dying. So
Yeah, I don't remember the name of that ship. Maybe because it was only up there for like 5 seconds before before it exploded. Um, I will Google it
yeah,
if you're still kind of doing some setup. Let's see. Or if you're not talking, then I will talk and
well, no,
Google
no,
at the same time.
no. I'm sorry. My wife came in and asked me a question real quick.
Okay.
So
It's like dead air, dead air.
my my fault. Um, no, so he even and I'll probably say one of the best
The
things
Saratoga.
about the Saratoga. Yes,
Hmm.
one of the best things about that beginning episode, and I rewatched this yesterday for this particular conversation. You could see the level of care that Cisco had. Like, even though he was focused on the battle, when it was time, like, oh, the ship is lost, the warp core is about to breach. We need to get all non-civilians and anyone that is still alive off this ship into escape pods. He gave the order to pretty much abandon the ship. And then one of the first things he did was go to the civilian sector of the ship to find his wife and child.
Yep.
You see
which is
Jake. Uh huh.
the very first when I first off when I googled this there was an autofill, so apparently no one remembers the name of the ship without Google. But the very first thing that popped up was the Reddit thread, and we don't need to go down this rabbit hole because I think we have before. But it was, why did the Saratoga have civilians on it at Wolf 359?
I'm glad you touched on that because, like,
Like,
but
good question,
every
internet.
time I rewatch this now in my older age, I'm like, they knew they were about to go into this really big battle. Why didn't they offload their civilians onto another ship to like I understand like probably every ship had a good amount of civilians on the ship. So you couldn't have one ship that was specifically designed to like, okay, everybody offload civilians onto the ship. Y'all go back to Earth and we'll go
Yeah,
into battle.
yeah. Even if you're thinking you're going to win the battle, it's still a battle, right?
Yes. Yes.
You only want to bring service people to it. Yeah, that. I think when we talked about this before, I made the point that I think it was an emergency situation. So like everyone just had to drop everything and go. But your point still stands. It's like you can like once you all got there, like designate one ship to get everyone
At
away
least
from. Yeah,
one. Like, and I feel like one of those ships could have handled the vast majority of the civilians, even if they were going to be overflowing after that. It wasn't like they were going to be on the ship for days now. It's just getting them on
yeah,
there to transport them back to Earth.
yeah. Or the
Done
nearest
and
starbase or
done.
whatever.
Yeah, or the
Yeah.
nearest starbase. And I think if I'm thinking of my how the universe is constructed, Wolf 359 wasn't that far from Earth. So
Oh, you're right. Because they were like at Earth like later the episode. So
yes, yes. I mean, it was far in this in considered light years, yes, but not, but not
yes, from
that
a
far
physics
in the
perspective, very far away.
exactly, but not that far as like Star Trek is concerned.
Yep. Yep. But to your point, I don't want to take. It was just funny. But to your point, his first thought when it was time to get out of there was to um, go get his family as a great dad, playing that protector role
Mm-hmm.
um, as a father, and obviously didn't work out for Jennifer. Jeez, am I
Yes,
spacing on her name?
Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer. But got Jake out of there. And really, in one of the worst moments of his life, is still able to comfort his son. So, like, you get from the very beginning that, like, Cisco's ability to juggle, which I think is an aspect we should talk about, just even like trying to
Mm-hmm.
be a dad in Starfleet, but trying to juggle having a dangerous job, being a commander, and being a dad is something that he's able to do under the most extreme circumstances. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a very serious moment in the show, but it's like an immediate insight into his character.
There are multiple moments with that though. Um, I will go off from the beginning when they actually went to D Space Nine, and the Cardassians had just left the space station. They pretty much like destroyed or ransacked the space station in preparation of the Federation coming to take over. And so you had replicators offline. You had people looting in the promenade. You had like pretty much not a safe place for children to be at,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much. And one of the main things that was pointed out when Chief O'Brien brought Commander Cisco to his quarters along with Jake was, oh yeah, the replicators are offline, but I can send rations. Um, and Jake was like, "Dad," I was just like looking like
Mm-hmm.
the hell, like.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
one of the first things Commander Cisco did was like, "Come here, hey, we're gonna have to rough it a bit. Calm down. This is not forever. This is just how it's
And
gonna be for right now. I need you to like work with me here."
And I think he related it to like camping. Like, didn't he? Like, I feel like I'm having like a buried memory about the show since I haven't seen it in a while. But like, didn't he say like, oh, it's going to be like when we were on whatever planet doing this, we're just going to rough it or something like that? And like, Jake immediately got it. Maybe I'm misremembering for another episode, but he like dadded the moment. It wasn't all logic. He like made the situation relatable.
Relatable. I don't. I can't remember fully. That is a possibility. Like even though I just watched this yesterday, granted, like I didn't fully pay attention to that particular scene, only just for that particular moment. So like yeah, that could be a possibility that he did reference it back to that. All I remember him was saying like we're gonna have to rough it a bit, okay? And was it like mean or stern with what he said? It was just like, hey, come here, hey, I know the situation is not ideal. I know it's not what we normally are used to, but this is where we are right now. Hey, we're gonna have to rough it a bit. Work with me. And Jake was like, okay, Dad, which shows the sign
Yeah.
of a good father.
And throughout the show, you have to see Cisco be a father in
Mm-hmm.
pretty much every stage of Jake's life,
Mm-hmm.
even because of the visitor episode, even like when Jake's an elderly person, just
Mm-hmm.
always kind of showing how like that father son connection continues and that dynamic tends to stay when it's healthy. I don't think we mentioned this, but I know parenthood and father could be, and all this stuff can be triggering to some folks who didn't have that at
Yes.
home or anything like
Yes.
that. Some of you might be listening, being like, I wish my dad was like that, and yeah, very much heart goes out to you. You can put "fu" in the chat to me if that makes it feel better. So I'm happy for you to do that. But like, he stays. He knows how to set the boundaries, and he kind of does this with your crew. But you don't want to be parental to your coworkers. We can talk about it, and that's another one. But
Mm-hmm.
like, he knows how to set the boundaries, but he knows how to nurture and explain and bring along the way. And you see him do that when Jake's a little kid, when he's a teenager, when he hits college age, and
Mm-hmm.
then like that one episode where he's like um, an old man, and it's just like, yeah, that's just a core to his character. He wants Jake to grow up and be whatever Jake wants to be that makes him happy, as long as it's not,
Mm-hmm.
some. I'm trying to think of the
Some
non-curse word.
degenerate.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the non-keep it clean, just in case mom hears it. But yeah, degenerate, unlawful, which is why he gets so concerned for him hanging out with Rom initially, which is,
Yes.
a little bit stereotyping, but like, he's like, humans don't want to backslide into the aggressive capitalism that is for Reagan. So like, he got very concerned at the beginning because it's like, well, I want Jake to be whatever you want, but I don't want to be, you know, uh, like a pirate trader, right?
Which is
So
also an interesting story bit too, with his relationship that Jake had with Rob, because in the beginning, like you said, Captain Cisco looked at it as like, oh, this is a negative influence to Jake, which could take him down the wrong path. As a parent, most parents look at stuff like that as the people that their child decides to make their friends, like, oh, this could be something negative that could take them down the path that I want them to go on. Uh, but the crazy thing with that is that it had the opposite effect. Jake had a better influence within his life, within, I was about to say Rom, but it's not Rom. Rom is the father. Um, which
no, I said Rom. I said Rom. Yeah.
you said
Well,
Rom.
back to the comments, everybody. I said Rom when I meant Nog.
Nog. Um, so, like, Nog ended up having a better influence because of his friendship with Jake, which molded him into becoming the Starfleet officer that he became. And personally, I feel like uh, if things didn't occur to where Jake was on the space station, uh, that they Nog would have ended up becoming a totally different person, and probably wouldn't even went into Starfleet being the first Ferengi in Starfleet as
And
well.
I have a small addendum to that
Mm-hmm.
because I think Jake was going to be on his path. Um, I think what we see out of other Starfleet lineages that we'll get to, I think there's a natural assumption that Jake is going to be a Starfleet officer at some point. And I think Nog, getting it correct, RIP to Aaron Eisenberg.
R.I.P. Man.
I
Great,
think
great person.
Nog, yeah, absolutely. I think Nog taught Jake how to be a risk taker and think outside the box a little bit. That put him on the
Hmm.
path to becoming a journalist instead. So like I think they both benefited each other
That's
in
true.
ways, and it just kind of it like switched them
Yeah,
both around a little bit.
yeah. That's true. That is true. I'll definitely give you that. But like, part of that is also based on how good of a father Jake Sisko was, because even when, um, even with Jake, not Jake, I said
Ben,
how good of a father Jake Sisko was. How good of a
yeah,
father,
I wasn't gonna
yeah,
correct you, but I was like he'll move on. But yeah, what Captain Cisco,
Captain
Ben Cisco.
Sisko, Commander
We are
Ben.
struggling with names today.
We
Like I'm not
are.
sure what's going on. We
This
aren't that drunk yet.
not even a little bit. Uh, how good of a father Ben Cisco was to Jake.
Hmm.
He even when Jake was, um, he was scared to tell his father like this is the direction that I wanted to go in my life, being scared that because he didn't want to go in the Starfleet that his father was going to be upset about that. But
Right.
when Jake finally told Ben, he was just like, I no, I want you to go the direction that you feel like you need to go for your life. If this is what you feel like you need to do, I want you to do that. You don't have to follow my footsteps, which is what a
Which
good father would do in that particular situation. Go ahead.
yeah, which really hits home for me because my dad did that for me. His dad did that for him,
Mm-hmm.
and his dad did that for him. Like it's kind of like, oddly enough, I was thinking about it for this episode. Like it's an odd Norton thing. I guess if I ever have a little tyke, it'll be the same thing one day. If
Mm-hmm.
any of these ladies out here are single and ready to mingle, but anywho, it'll be the same thing. But like those moments where he's allowed to grow and explore in a safe way and like get supported as opposed to being like, no, the family business is Starfleet. You need to, because they could have written Cisco like that, and he would be like almost like a villainous father. But like, it was always like, no, your path is in front of you. I guess growing up in a post-scarcity society, it's a lot easier to do that too. But like,
It is.
he
It is.
he let him have his path, and it did not have to be like, Wesley Crusher, where it's like you're gonna be acting ensign on ops and all that stuff. So yeah, I appreciated that on a personal level because I experienced that in my own life and saw that
Mm-hmm.
in the men, especially on my father's side, um,
Mm-hmm.
in my life, and so that's the dad mode that stuck out to me from Cisco that has always spoken to me, including one episode because given I assume giving your children all that leeway means sometimes they're going to make a decision that you don't like. That
Yeah,
episode where they evacuate Deep Space Nine because the
I was going to
Dominion
touch
and the
on that.
Cardassians,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
yeah, are
Mm-hmm.
taking over, and Jake doesn't go, and he leaves a letter for his dad, and he's like, "Damn it!" and just
Yes.
throws it across the thing. And they're like, "Can we go back? We need to go back for him." He's like, "I can't go back for one man. Plus, he's a grown man. He can make his own choices." I'm
Yes.
like, "Yeah, I'm fairly sure I've done stuff in my
It.
life, tick my dad off exactly the same."
I'm pretty sure that was a tough pill for Ben to swallow in that moment because he was like he ultimately like in that particular situation he was captain. He wasn't
Hmm.
father. He was captain. So, and it was during war times, during crazy situations, and Jake had decided to make this choice to stay on Deep Space Nine, so he could pretty much write about what was going on.
Because he was a
Which,
journalist. It
because he
was like
was a
his job
journalist,
to embed.
in hindsight, it's like that was a very stupid decision. It's like
It was exceedingly dangerous.
exceedingly. You could have been. He could have been like killed. He could have been used as a ploy to get additional things from the Federation, so on and so forth. So on and so forth. So Heck, with even within the times that we are in currently, I could see something like that occurring. And the fact that they didn't go that direction in Star Trek is pretty telling. And I'm pretty sure they probably like try to depict war times in Star Trek as like more of we're more civilized when it comes to war. Like we don't kill civilians and all that stuff.
Well, actually, I have a much more, as I do
Okay,
sometimes,
go
given
ahead.
my strategically, I have a bit more of a Craven point of view
Mm-hmm.
about that. So, all war is politics.
Yeah.
Great weekend to be talking about war. All war is politics at the end of the day. And one of the best ways to win a war without even firing a bullet or taking prisoners or anything like that is to sour the war effort at home.
Mm.
And I think what they were hoping to do with Jake, because there's a part where like Jake learns that his stories aren't getting out and things like that, and he goes to I think Wei Yun and
Yes,
says
ma'am.
like, you know, why are my stuff not getting out? And he's like, well, you're not showing both sides. You're not. So like, I think they were hoping to turn Jake to start being like, hey, Dominion's actually not that bad. They're good dudes, like
Use
all that
him
stuff,
to
and
send
send
out
that.
propaganda,
Yeah, and then
and I
like
think he
people in the
even said
Federation
that.
are like, yeah. Jake does call him out on that. Like, you're just getting me to send propaganda, and he's like, no, I want a balanced point of view. So I think once they had a strategic commander's son that's a journalist in hand, they were like, no. Torturing him, bargaining with him, that's not going to get us anything. If we can turn him and have him send back home that we're all good, they're going to lose popular support for this war in the
Mm-hmm.
Federation, and we're going to win without any issue. Like, because that's, sorry, y'all, to dig into my Sun Tzu strategist bag, but that is the height of skill, being able to win the war without fighting. And like, that's all I ever read that was is like, oh, they're not being nice. Like, they would do whatever if it was on the critical path to win the war. It's
Mm.
fortunate he's not a Starfleet ensign. They were just like, if we can
Mm-hmm.
turn him, if we can brainwash him, if we can change him, then he'll sour the war effort back home, and we'll have Earth in weeks. Like, that's all I ever read that as.
Good point of view. I never thought of it in that particular aspect. So I thank you for throwing that out, and that makes a whole lot of sense. Uh, and then there was other situations that Cisco, Ben Cisco, has shown that he was a great father to Jake. Uh, so, like, of course, we pointed out at the beginning. Of course, when he decided that he wasn't going to Starfleet, and then when he was older and wanted to stay on D Space Nine, um, and
There are
then
people screaming at us to talk about the visitor.
I was going there. I was
Okay. I don't mean to be ahead of you. Sorry.
no. Actually, like, I actually will give this over to you to talk more about the visitor, and I'll say what I want to say about that. Go ahead.
I'll be real quick because that's a classic episode. It's a heart wrenching episode.
It
I think I've
is.
only seen it like two or three times. I'm very fortunate once again not to be triggering to anyone who listens to this, but I'm very fortunate to still have my father. Thank
Yeah.
God. And so watching a heart wrenching display of not just your father being gone, but like not really gone. It's like, oh man, that is a hard
Yeah.
episode to watch.
Yeah.
And along the way, Cisco is still like, hey, live your life. I know this is weird, but please don't stop your writing. I know you love writing, and Jake changed his writing, and Jake ends up saving the day. You know, like that is like he's the hero of this story. He makes the sacrifice and the choices to be able to reset the timeline in a way where you go. And honestly, if as a son, if my dad was in the same spot somehow, there's no real world equivalent to all this because it's too made up stuff. But you know, I would do the same thing if I like had to like essentially learn new skills to get him back. So I get it from the son perspective, but from the dad perspective, for Cisco to still be like, no, go live your life. Yeah, this is weird. I'm gonna pop in and out, and I'm stuck in this thing, but that's my job and all that stuff. And like so Jake shows a lot of love as a son, but like Cisco just being like, no, just leave me in this white void thing and go be happy with your life is like, yeah, that's top tier fatherhood right there. I think.
I've also looked at this in a different situation. Now, being able to, in the future sense, knowing how things ended in Deep Space Nine, with Cisco still leaving, not necessarily being
Mm-hmm.
dead, but leaving, and by that token, still leaving, Jake Cisco to, be his own man and everything. At that point in time, and I believe this was like season 5 when this occurred. I'll have to look at that to verify fully, but it
Season 4, season 5, yeah.
it was basically saying at this point, even at this juncture, at in Jake's life, he still was not ready to move forward with not having his father. Like his father was still um, a significant person within his life to help him become the person that he would eventually growing up to. So by the time between that episode and the very ending when he leaves due to the whole him fighting Gul Dukat, uh, he had got to a point where he could move forward and not be as stuck in one moment to have to like feel like he needs to save his father. Granted,
Yeah.
two totally different situations, but I also looked at that as by the time we got to the ending of Deep Space Nine, Jake had grown and matured enough to the point that he could end up letting his father go and move forward with his life uh, when or if his father was no longer there.
That's a good point.
And
That is a good point. Of course, in my head canon, season 8 starts with Cisco coming back anyway, so he's only gone for like a summer.
oh,
But yeah.
100%. Yeah. Uh,
Well,
that,
that was good.
that's how one of the
No,
books wrote it too. I just want to throw that out to you. He was only gone for like I believe a year or so within his
okay.
book.
Okay.
Um, my main thing that I do want to point out, as we're talking about fathers, so dynamics here, like within our personal lives. My father and mother, they divorced at a very young age. I believe I was like 2 when they divorced, and my dynamic with my father would be different from what Patrick has with his father, where he wasn't always there as I was growing up, and there were times that he did. There were disappointing times with him. As we've gotten to our older age, we have reconciled our relationship and grown to understand each other more. But I will iterate that our relationship hadn't always been like that
Hmm.
as we were growing up. So my viewpoint when it comes to a father would be different from Patrick's, and I'll allow Patrick to talk about his viewpoint with his father.
Yeah, no, we got a great relationship. I mean, secure and all that stuff. Feel like I could talk to him about anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think definitely, and I'm sure he'd love me for saying this on, on the internet. I think definitely we're cut from a very stoic um, crap
Mm-hmm.
kind of cloth,
Mm-hmm.
us lineage of Nortons, but we know what we're all about and what we want. So it may not be the most like emotional relationship, even though there's plenty of emotion. It's all there, like it's all there, but it might not be like the most outwardly emotional for the public, I guess to say. But no, yeah, I come from. People have noted that before when I've talked about my relationship, not just with my father, but with both my parents, that we all have a great relationship. So I do come from a perspective where not everything was great, right? But some of the stuff that's
Yeah.
complicated other people's relationships, I've been very blessed to. Well, not saying that you aren't blessed. I'm sorry, I don't mean it like that.
No,
But
no, no,
I
no.
have I
That's
have not.
that's correct terminology.
Yeah, well, I will take it then. To not necessarily go through. So I do come like when I see the Cisco's relationship, it's like it is very reminiscent of uh, my dad, except I don't have the real life drama of the board, right? So mom's still in the picture too. So
And
yeah, so I'm gonna be bringing a point of view that um, will be more representative of that, and I don't know what that means as we start getting into maybe the more challenging fathers.
and that's why I wanted to start with Ben Cisco, because as far as like all the other fathers that we will probably discuss today, uh, he was the more stable and there was the least amount of conflict between this father and the child. So
Yeah, they
like,
still had it from time to time, but they
oh
worked
yeah,
through it.
100%.
And yeah, uh, before we, because I feel like you might be starting to get us into the rest of the list. Um, we got to say this: you're black, I'm black, they're
Mm-hmm.
black. Everybody,
Mm-hmm.
throw your hands in the air. Positive black fatherhood
Which you don't see
on
a lot in
TV.
television.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh,
Yes.
yeah. And our community has been through it. We are not always we don't always have agency when our son, father daughter relationships get disrupted in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
in the black community. And to get to have that and have like the best dad in Star Trek be black folk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then later on, we get more black love and more
Mm-hmm.
black fatherhood from Cisco.
Mm-hmm.
Even Cisco being like a grandparent in that one weird episode where they end up on a planet that's like their lineage because of some time stuff or whatever. Like
Oh
getting even
yeah.
to see that. So like yeah, I could not let us talk about Cisco without pointing out the fact that he is black, and if that bothers you, I don't care if you put FU in the comments. I'll wear it. That is very important representation to even someone like me who has a great dad. Like I
Yeah,
know what's going on in my community.
that particular situation, I'm just going to delete that comment and block you from ever even commenting on anything or even watching any of our stuff. So, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be remiss to not piggyback off of what you were saying because, uh, uh, spoiler alert, next week we're going to be talking about racism in Star Trek. And I thought that would be pretty apt for us to talk about when it comes to the whole topic of Juneteenth that just occurred, and for us to like focus on situations within Star Trek that could either be considered racist or when they uh, pretty much uh, gotten rid of something like that within the Star Trek universe. And the reason why I'm saying is because what he was talking about as far as having a father figure in television and it be depicted as a black father in television, one of the systemic racist tropes that have occurred in television is that black fathers always abandon their children, which is not the case. Even on this
Mm-mm.
podcast right here, you have one where my father was not necessarily always consistently in my life, but you have Patrick where his father was always in his life.
Still is, quite frankly.
It, it still is. But also at the same time, when it comes to my father, like, yeah, he wasn't there when I was in my younger years, but we've have reconciliated that relationship and both understand why things happen the way that they happen. And we have a good relationship now. So when we talk about, and we're going to talk about this further next week when it comes to systemic racism, that's one of those points that really infuriate me when it comes to television and how they depict the black family, because that is not the case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, they
But
look. Yeah, we'll get there.
we will. We will. Going back to something lighthearted.
I'm gonna put the soapbox away for a second.
Well,
I'm gonna put the soapbox back over there.
we're
It was about to
definitely
be.
gonna
It
have
was
that
about
soapbox come next week. So we're,
based on what you said and how moving that was. I was about to be like, man, and here I go. But wait a minute, that's next week. That's next week.
that's next week. That's just a little snippet of what we're going to be discussing come next week's episode. Where I said in previous episodes that it's going to get a little less lighthearted, and that one's going to be more in your face. And there's a lot of people that don't like that topic, but I don't care. We're going to discuss this
Yeah.
topic because it's one of those things that, especially now, that is a big deal within our world. However,
Mm-hmm.
going back to fathers in Star Trek and how Ben Sisko was a great one, I want to touch on a father that wasn't necessarily that great.
There's a few of them.
There are, and I feel like with this one, I'm gonna be like beating a dead horse. Worf. We got to discuss Worf and Alexander.
Yeah, I don't. Is this another instance of Worf being done dirty by the writers, or is because I can never tell. I'm like, is he inherently in his character supposed to be a bad dad to Alexander, or is that just like they just didn't want to have a kid on the show, another kid on the show every week? Like I don't know. I'm gonna be really interested to get your take.
I truly think that they did not know exactly how to deal with Alexander's character. They did not know exactly what to do with this character, how he should be depicted, which is weird because they had Wesley Crusher.
Yeah,
So you would have think that they would have learned from Wesley Crusher, who has been on the series since episode one, and learn from either underutilizing him or not utilizing him the best way, and then finally getting a good grounding for his character and moving him forward. You would think they would have learned from that, but I don't think the writers knew exactly how to write a great father and son dynamic, and this was one
yeah.
of them.
Yeah, okay, so this is the writers doing it. Because that's how I feel too, because he's so noble and so honorable. And
Uh
then when
huh.
he's with Jadzia, he's like determined to show that he's a good father so
Uh
that
huh.
she'll have a kid with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, but then in the same series, like that bad blood between him and Alexander
Mm-hmm.
still continues. And it's just like, I'm so confused. It's worse. So I think I'm with you. I think the writers,
And
specifically on TNG, were like, I don't know what to do with this.
I really think in that particular instance in Deep Space Nine, where they were about to get married and stuff, and he depicted like him being a good father if they had children. When I, the writers was like, "Oh crap, Alexander still exists. We
Yeah, I know, right?
we
What are we
haven't dealt with this in Deep Space Nine."
What are we gonna do? Let's put him in the Klingon Defense Force. Well, that doesn't make any sense. He didn't want to be a warrior.
you
Well,
know,
now he wants to be a warrior because his dad wanted him to be a warrior. Like, wait, no,
or
that's
despite his
what?
dad, or like, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
and I
What was
get it.
that?
I get it. There are situations like that in real life where the child may grow up to like do things in spite of, or to do it to prove to themselves that this is something they can do where they think that their parent thinks that they couldn't. And I get that. And that's the type I should say, I feel,
Yeah,
asterisks, I feel this is the direction that the writers wanted to go with this.
still didn't make any sense because Worf was
Still
upset that
missed
he
the
became
mark.
a warrior, which is what he wanted him to do
Mm,
the whole time. And then when he finally does it, he's like, well, now I know you don't want to be a warrior. So why
mm-hmm.
are you out here in this war? And I'm like, and I guess if we're just taking what's on the paper with what they did with it, I think that would be terrible fathering. Just that arc alone would be
100%.
trying to dictate what your kid is going to do, and then when they try to please you, you're still upset. Is just like, okay, well, I think your dad's just not a good person. But then
I,
Worf is a good person, and he shows it on the show. So it's like, well, I don't get what's going on.
what I will say here is that TNG writers had no idea how to write a good father and son dynamic. Um, Granted, like we will discuss other aspects where it looks like that was a pretty good dynamic there, but it was still always antagonistic. There was never, at least from what I can remember, a good father son dynamic with the
the
characters.
the only one, the only way I'm going to challenge you a little bit on
Uh
that is
huh.
that first, maybe you have to be unalived as the father, but like Deanna talked glowingly about her father. Jack Crusher had
Yes.
that nice message saved for him,
Yes.
and just as you were saying that, because I don't know why I was trying to think of counters, maybe just for entertainment purposes. I think when you look back on Noonie and Soong, I can't necessarily say he was a bad dad.
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good.
But
I'd
yeah,
never. Oh, that is really really good. I like your direction there, Patrick. That
okay,
I
yeah.
I never thought about that. Even when I was thinking about like the direction of what I was going to take this episode, Nguyen Soon and Data and Lore never came to my mind.
Yeah, well, that's what the long list is for. Like I said, we talked before the show. I was going to wing it with them, and this is me winging it. And I don't bring it up to disprove your point. I think I bring it up to show how badly they fumbled one
Well,
of these key relationships. Because it's like it seems like they kind of knew how to do it, but then like didn't
but
for
missed
some
the
reason.
mark.
So
And
yeah,
but granted, that goes back to one of the things that we talked about, like how certain character arcs were missed. Like it's almost like they forgot about this character and didn't bring this character up until they had to, and then it's like, oh crap! So what direction we want to go with this? So they decided to go the route of like Worf not necessarily being that great of a father uh, with his only born son, which is crazy to me because Worf always seemed like the honorable person that would always want to do the right thing in the situation.
and they make the Klingon culture seem very patriarchal, feudal, father's son.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want a traditional man, you can get a Klingon because he's gonna raise a son to be a warrior and like
Mm-hmm.
all this stuff. So like it seems like it's a very important thing, especially when you think about like the Duras and how much they were hinging on having male family, and that wasn't healthy either. I guess we can splinter off into that if you want to make this a 10-hour podcast. But
No, thank you.
like there is no reason they've ever established or shown for why Worf sent him away. I think maybe there was an episode where he was like maybe low key admitted he was scared given all that had happened to get to the point where he had Alexander by himself, but like yeah, it makes zero sense for the writers to be like, and Worf just sends him to his human parents.
Mm-hmm.
The end.
Mm-hmm.
Except not the end. We're gonna we're gonna bring him back. Honestly, I will be I will grant some grace to Worf. I think if the writers had just left it at that, where he's like, dangerous job, wasn't really planning to become a dad. I think you'd be safer growing up here because it worked for me, and I'm gonna get at you whenever I can. Like, it's still not good fatherhood, right? Because you're not present.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that was the direction they were trying to go with that. I truly think that that was, but the how they applied it to the character and the dynamic wasn't that great because even then, when he did go back to Earth with Worf with his grandparents essentially, they didn't show times where Worf was contacting Alexander to like check in with them. Hey, how's everything going? Da da da. Just let I'm alive. I'm alive here in deep space.
Yeah, because
Uh huh.
here on Earth, and seemingly in the service, and I think this speaks to being a Starfleet dad in general, and the whole family's question in Star Trek and things like that we've tackled before,
Mm-hmm.
is like I gotta think it's not easy. Kind of like being a military dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here, like your job is going to send you to the other side of the world, maybe to do things you shouldn't do because they're terrible ideas. I'm not going to like whatever, different podcast, I guess. But like we have in our heads a working model of like how someone who's stuck on an aircraft carrier can still be present as a father.
Yes.
And even then, not even then. I don't know anything about that. I'm not going to speak to the comments if you guys have that experience. But like, we have like at least a working model of like, okay, someone's in there. It breaks down in Starfleet a little bit because like
All the
an aircraft carrier
technology
is
that we
going to,
have.
well, all the technology won, but like an aircraft carrier is going to go out for like a year, and then like
Oh yeah,
then
yeah.
you're going to come
Mm-hmm.
home for a while, and then you're going to get your
Mm-hmm.
next assignment. Like there's periods where they like set it up where you're like back, and then you like
Mm-hmm.
leave after 4 or 5 years, or you retire or something like that. Like at some point, like they make families work. I don't know how that actually happens on Starfleet because like you're on the ship for like 7 years. So like when you send Alexander away, like I don't know what the model is to be for lack of a better term. Well, I guess for lack of a better term, a military dad in that situation, since that seems like the model he was trying to go for. But I don't get it in that context.
I mean, it's always depicted that the child will normally be on the same ship as the parent. So whether that be in the mother or the father or both. Uh, so in this
Yeah,
particular situation, it was kind of jarring or different from what they had depicted before, because it's like, well, why wouldn't
there's
he
no
stay
reason
with his
for him,
father?
yeah, to leave.
Yeah. And that lets me go back more on the whole thing that like the writers had zero clue what to do with Alexander. It's like, oh, we wrote this character into here, and because we killed the mom, obviously he was going to be with the dad, who was a significant character on the show, and we don't know what to do with him. So let's just ship him off back to his to Worf's parents.
Yeah, and then complicate it later. Yeah,
Yeah.
by bringing him back, and yeah. So I think that's our universe reason for why Worf comes off as a bad dad. I think if you look in universe, you can deal a lot of grace for Worf because I think him as a character, the only way you can kind of explain it as a character for why he was, maybe I won't say bad because I guess making all these value judgments are a little bit, but more absentee than he needed to be as a dad, is that he is, his biological parents are unalived.
Hmm.
He's living with adopted parents, and I do wonder if, and I guess if they ever wrote it correctly, and I don't know how close he came to ever actually admitting in the show. You might remember how close he ever comes. He truly could have just said, "I wasn't ready to be a dad because my example of fatherhood, Rozhenko, is great, but I want to raise you like a Klingon, and I didn't have a Klingon example. And then your mom was like kind of a free spirit, and
Hmm.
like I didn't even have her to like help me reconcile with all this. And I just thought being with my instability was not going to be good for you. So being with their stability was going to be better. Um, and then you even see when like they are back together in
Hmm.
the later seasons, like he still has to kind of keep growing into it. Like
Hmm.
it's a constant iteration process because he's like, I want to be a Klingon dad, but I was raised by humans and things like that. So I think there's like enough in universe reasons for why Worf would send him away or have like a distant relationship with him that's complicated that I guess you could label bad. I mean, yeah,
Hmm.
I don't know if that's necessarily bad, but like it's unconventional at least. So I think there's in-universe reasons there, and I think now jumping back out of universe, the writers just don't use any of it, to my
And
recollection.
and this is where I feel like they missed the mark. Because going
Yeah,
back to our dynamics with our fathers, I'm looking at this from my standpoint and how I didn't have a great relationship with my father as a younger kid going into a young adult. And then we didn't have a relationship until I actually became adult. And like we've fixed a lot of the issues from the past, and now we do have a nice relationship. And I look at that in Worf and Alexander's standpoint, where when he was younger, had no idea how to be a good father, and was hoping that he probably had the mother to be able to give that other piece of influence that he was lacking, and didn't have that. So it was just like, oh, I am a single parent and I have no clue how to do this. I feel like if they leaned more into that and really
hmm,
really showed how much Worf was struggling with this. Not only the fact that like every time he thinks of like when he's failing as a father, he thinks of like damn, it would have been really great for I forget her name, Ambassador
Kalar.
Kalar. It would have been
Hmm.
really great for Kalar to have been here because she would have been great at this where I'm not. Like truly leaning into this. It would have been really good, heart wrenching moments of a of a man being thrusted into fatherhood. One didn't know that he was a father until the kid was like what 3, 4
Oh, I
years
forgot about
old.
that part. Yeah.
He didn't know he was a father. Let's also, in Worf's defense, he didn't know he was a father. So
He did not. Yeah.
I also think it would have been different if he had known from since day one that he was a father. Uh, he would have learned a lot more. So he was kind of thrusted into this, and along that same time where he learned he was a father, oh, Kalar's dead. Like,
Because I
uh-huh.
think that's a thing with fatherhood that maybe I'll experience one day, or I'm just speculating here, quite frankly. For the chat's sake, I don't even have younger siblings, so like I am out of touch with like childhood development outside of
Mm-hmm.
like a very academic, clinical context of what I've heard about it. But I imagine fatherhood is something you grow into, and like if you have someone who's an infant,
Mm-hmm.
their needs are infantile, and then like by the time they're like a toddler, like you've grown some, and then by the time they're a 3 or 4 year old, you've grown some more, and you kind of like don't have to start on 10
Yeah.
top tier dad. Like you can like go along with it, and by the time they need advice as an adult, then you got a perspective on it. But yeah, he got thrown into the deep end, and I think that's why you may have noticed me starting waffling pretty hard on calling him a bad dad, because I'm kind of like, man, I have a great relationship with my father, but if someone, which they shouldn't, because I mean, I don't want to put my
Mm-hmm.
personal life out there, but there shouldn't be like that out there. But if someone showed up to my door with a 3 or 4 year old and be like, "This is yours," I think I would
It,
freak out pretty hard.
yeah, it would throw you off because
Yeah,
life was a certain way, and then all of a sudden it's just like, B man, hey, oh yeah, I have this child. Oh yeah, this is your child. It would have been nice to have known this before you went into labor.
yeah.
Like, I would have loved to have been there to experience this whole thing with you and to learn this child when they were younger, going to the age that they're currently at. Like, so yes, Kalar has a significant role in why Worf is the father that he is in the series too. Granted, like we're looking at this from the standpoint of in world and not how the writers were probably
Yeah,
inept in
exactly.
here. So we're trying to give the writers something here.
Well, we're trying to explore fatherhood in Starfleet, and we know it's already not easy because Cisco has to balance being a commander, and he even has his kid present, and then
Mm-hmm.
Starfleet weirdness happens, and he doesn't have his, and like you have to like really fight your way through it to be a father, or probably any type of parent, and be a Starfleet officer at the same time. And then this is a situation where like, well, we're starting to see how far that can actually go, because if it just is
Yeah.
out of nowhere, even our most noble, honorable characters can seemingly act out of character. But like, man, I'm having a hard time calling him a bad dad. I think he's a scared dad. I
Oh,
think
he was
he's
a
just
bad
so
dad.
scared.
He was a bad dad. I'm gonna say it.
I could,
Like,
okay, well,
just
maybe I just
just
feel
with
like,
my experiences, he was still because
okay,
this is the way that I look at it. Like, granted, like he wasn't there since day one, and it wasn't until the child was like 3 or 4 years old that he like learned that he even had a child. I will definitely give him that, but you have a child, like you have a child, point blank,
yeah,
period. Like
yeah,
you're
it's game time, I
yeah, it's
guess.
game time. Like it's time for you to change that whole aspect. It's time for you to like change your mindset. It's time for you to try to be there for this child, especially a child that just lost his mom. Like you are all that he has.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I think where, oh
uh-huh.
no, I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, no, wait, I was also going to say like granted I get it. Like you have your own grief with this woman that you loved, and that does take a significant toll. And I will reiterate this when we talk about another notable dad in Star Trek. But also at the same time, you are a father. Like at
Yeah.
least try. And there are some
So I
episodes where he did show like he tried, but
And he did, like the Western episode, and the episode where he ends up taking the mud
uh-huh,
bath and
uh-huh.
things like that. Like you see Rourke, like when his when his dad forces it back on him. Like he
Exactly.
starts to that growth process that he could have gone through that whole time, and Alexander probably would have really appreciated it. So he does end up going through a lot of that growth process, which is why it's probably later season stuff. They were like, well, we don't know what to do with the Worf character now,
But
so
still, a
we'll make him
significant
grow as a
fail
dad.
though. Because by
Yeah.
the time he got to
So
Deep Space Nine, it showed like, oh, I had not been a significant impact in my son's teenage life, and now that he's an adult, he is waning and not going down a great path, and that's on Worf.
yeah, 100%. So I'll tell you what's going on in my brain.
Okay.
Um, my lawyer brain is kicking in.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
what happens in the law is fault oftentimes is not like the issue, right? It's the intent behind it that warrants like like how severe the punishment will be. And I think when I think of bad, I think of intentional acts, and I just feel like Worf was like reckless or negligent, but that's still bad. So I think I'm gonna back off on it, but that's why I'm
I
like
see what you're saying.
struggling with it. I'm like, man, I don't think Worf meant to do this, but he definitely didn't do what needed to be done, and on
He
some
didn't
level that
rise
he
to the
knew needed to
occasion.
be. Yeah,
But also, and I do want to reiterate this. I do want to touch on that because there are terrible fathers in real life that are actually great people. So, like, you being a terrible father doesn't necessarily mean you're not a good person. You just was not great at this particular aspect of your life. So,
yeah,
I
that's a
do
good
want to
point.
point that out. Um,
Okay,
so it's not saying that Worf was a terrible character or a terrible person and ended up becoming terrible. No, he just did not know how to be a father. But I also feel like it was an indictment on the writers of TNG to not lean into that, like
yep,
like
and
they could have.
agreed. So not to cut this short, but that food thing I was telling you about is
Yeah, yeah.
happening now. So
Well,
yeah, we probably be a good time to.
we need to take a break anyway, so we're going to take a little quick break right now to take care of some things, and then we'll be back hopefully within like 10-15 minutes.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, be right back. All right, so we are back from our little break, and we are once again going back into discussing fathers in Star Trek, and we've already hit on um, Captain
Captain Cisco.
Cisco.
God, it was a disgrace that he wasn't a. I know why he wasn't, but still,
I get
should have been
it.
a captain from
It
the
was
beginning.
it was a good progression. However, I will I will leave that discussion for next week because I do have an issue there, but I'm going to leave that for next week.
Okay.
Um, so we talked about Ben Cisco. We talked about Worf. Now I want to touch on another notable father. Um, you know what? Actually, before I go into this notable father, I would be remiss to talk about a father that was just shown in one episode. That was roughly talked about, and that is Commander Riker's father. I believe his name is what, Cal Riker, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I wanted to go this direction with him was because it showed like a father figure that was definitely there in the child's life growing up to the point to where he or she is at. But it was also depicted, at least from Commander Riker's point of view, that he wasn't exactly the greatest father. But I do want to touch on that though, because one of the issues there was is that Commander Riker's mother passed away when he was very young. So not only did Riker had to deal with the grief of losing his mom, but Cal Riker had to deal with the grief of losing his wife, and that can be difficult with raising a child because you like there are some people that I've like met in real life that have moved forward to make sure that they're there for that child, and then there are some people that it has been difficult for them to move forward with that, and they've fallen short with their responsibilities of raising said child. And I believe, at least I believe, this episode did a good job of showing that, like why Riker had the animosity towards his father, but also why his father was the way that he was when Riker was growing up. What do you say, Patrick?
Yeah, if I remember the episode, I feel like they have a heart to heart that maybe I think I'm attributing to Worf because I just can't remember every time Worf spoke about being a father. But it was very similar in that like he was like I just didn't know what to do, and my life had been turned up, and I threw myself into my work if I remember correctly.
Yes,
He was a Starfleet
yes,
officer too. Um, so I think he's definitely one, and I think these happen in real life. I'm trying to think of
yes, it does.
like a famous example, but like this is something that can kind of happen in real life where like for lack of a better way to say it, with a father son dynamic at least, like kind of two dudes lose their way and don't know
Yeah,
what to do after
yeah.
a massive tragedy like that. I think, like you said, it still puts them in the bad category. I think just by the end of the episode, you're more sympathetic. Kind of like I became more sympathetic to Warfare talking about it, but at the same time, it did damage to Commander Riker that like required them to do some like weird blind martial arts
I still don't
stuff.
understand that martial arts. I don't. And that was the only time that they showed this particular style of martial arts in Star Trek, and it was never used ever again.
Because what kind of fights are you getting in where you're like, all right, first things first, let me put like this, helmet I can't see out of on, and give me this stick, and now I'm about to own all you fools. Like, I don't get it. They did that in that other Star series, um, where one of the bad
mhm.
guys used a sensory deprivation helmet, but I think you could still see a little bit out of it. But no, they're like, first thing you do with this fight style, you go fully blind. Borg coming at you, go fully blind. Klingons, fully blind. You got them.
and and I get why the writers put something like that in there for this particular episode because the
You
whole
do?
yeah, I do.
Okay.
Let me give the writers something here.
Okay.
So the depiction is that normally when it comes to a father son bond, it's always through something like that is interesting for both the father and son. And a lot of times that's either like sports or, you know, something depicted as being manly.
Yeah.
which which like for instance, like in my situation with my father, we bonded well when it came to cooking, believe it or not.
Hmm.
I'm a really great cook. I learned from my mom, my grandmother, or my mom's mom. So I learned a lot there. And when I got heavily into cooking, not cook, but grilling and also smoking, uh, I found myself trying to like perfect that craft and not getting to the point that I want to get to because my mom never taught me about grilling or smoking. Same thing with my grandmother, but my dad knew how to do that. So when I actually took the
Mm-hmm.
time and found that out about my dad, and I took the time to like spend time with him and learn that aspect, it not only did it teach me another side of myself that I didn't know about myself because my if you will know as you grow up, there are two sides to you, your mom and your dad, and they both have a major influence on you, whether they were there or not. Some of it is genetic. It's just in you. It's weird. It's just in you.
Well, I was just talking about it, the lineage of Norton men making their own way, and it's like,
Yeah.
yep, wouldn't expect anything different from my kid if I ever have one. If when you anyhow, I've already made my pitch.
So
But yeah, so it's like it's there somehow, some way.
so for you, I would imagine that when you saw like your dad come out within you, you were just like, "Oh, that's weird. That's my father." Like
Yeah,
this,
exactly.
this is great. I didn't think that that was going to be there. For me, for me growing up, it was, what is this side of me? This is weird because I didn't know my
Okay.
father on that level to know that that came from my father. So when we actually established our relationship and got real close, it was just like, oh, that was my father's side that was coming out. Oh, that's weird. Like, even though like my mother was a significant influence in me growing up and my father was really there, still my father came out, which was weird to me. It's mental when I think about it, but that
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
case. So
And the
mhm,
Rikers are Rikers down to
exactly.
Kyle trying to get into Pulaski's quarters a
But
little bit. I'm like,
Pulaski,
man, they move.
and that's why I'm glad that they had the Pulaski storyline with that because it showed how much of a womanizer that his father was, and Riker was also a womanizer. Not to the
Hmm.
not to the fact of like they did women dirty. It's just like
Hey,
they
when
knew how to riz up women very well.
hey, when they saw anyone in the blue shirt, that medical,
That is
they're
so
like,
true. Oh my god, I didn't think about
yeah, that's like that's it right there. That's what I'm going after.
that. That's a good point. Very good point.
It's like, girl, did I tell you that your eyes are as beautiful as the night sky?
But not only that, Pulaski in that episode also pointed out they're both stubborn.
Hmm.
Like I believe she did say that like Commander Riker is his father's son. They are stubborn to a fault. I think it was something along the lines of that. And it was
Yeah.
like, as a kid, listening to this and not having the relationship that I wanted from my father, I didn't pick up that. In my grown life of and actually having a good relationship with my father, when I rewatched it, I was like, huh, that is that is a great story bit to throw in for the writers, and I have to give them credit for that because it was basically
Yeah.
saying like, you know, a lot of the things that your father is will carry over into the child. Same thing for the mother as well, but in this particular
Yep.
situation with the father.
Absolutely. So, uh, man, I'm a little bit nervous to bring this up, but We see that in another father son relationship that in that show that you don't like to talk about.
Let's go ahead and rip off the band-aid.
Well, Picard and Jack Crusher, that's definitely kind of implied because Crusher kept it from him, and Jack Crusher, I think, Jack Crusher Jr. is supposed to be acting very much like a younger, cockier,
Mm-hmm.
brash Picard.
Mm-hmm. How Picard
That
was
it's
at his
like,
younger age.
yeah, exactly, and it's like he's not acting like Wesley. He's acting like it does
Mm-hmm.
it, like because I think it's also kind of weird because I think Jack does know that that's his dad at some point, but maybe not right off the bat. She like kind of tells him like once he's like acting like Picard, a young Picard, too much, and so like it's very interesting parallels to me where it's like that whole thing of like, well, we're both kind of a carbon copy of each other.
Yeah.
We should probably use that as a point of empathy, like is a common motif, and I think it kind of does it show up in Picard again? Because I'm trying to think of because Picard's father gets depicted in that show
Mm-hmm.
as well, and then they're kind of estranged. But like the way, well, maybe maybe it's my brain protecting me from Picard season
It
two.
is. It really is.
But yeah, but I feel like the way he makes peace with what happened to his mom in the show is by like reconciling with what he remembers his dad to be, and like it's like kind of the same thing. So like is like he ends up seeing himself more in his father, even though his father wasn't a planetary exploratory person. He was just trying to be a strong figure to get his son through this horrific tragedy, and then like his son wants to be an explorer, but like hasn't really been accepted, and then they use their sameness to get together. And so
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, it's something that keeps coming up. So yeah, I knew I was going to bring up Picard when you talked about Kyle Riker because I'm like, oh, this comes up again, but with the captain, using
Okay.
those similarities to get together. And now knowing your personal experience a little bit more, I'm like, wow, okay, that's that is actually a real life thing that happens.
Okay. Let me rip off this band-aid. Let me,
Okay.
because we all know how much I vehemently hate the Star Trek Picard series. Uh, it's okay.
Season 3 was good.
Season three was not Star Trek Picard. Season three was season eight of the Next Generation. That's how I will always look at
which is
this,
which is what all of Picard should have been. I
which is
100% agree.
all of Picard should have been. But I
So
will be fair to the series. This is part of the one and only time that you will hear me being fair to the series. Okay, I understand what they were trying to do.
mm,
They were trying to create a dynamic where Captain Picard, well, Admiral Picard at this point,
mm-hmm.
retired Admiral Picard, had another flaw within him that wasn't explored throughout the series of Star Trek, and they wanted to explore that point. So they went the direction of his mom and how his dad was, da da da, because it was never a situation that was actually explored. Okay.
Nah, the only time we see his dad in TNG is that episode where like Q may have saved his life or not saved
Yes,
his life. Like it wasn't clear, and he was just depicted as like, "You're going up to the stars and being different from me, and I'm a ogre." And it's like we get a very different point of view of his dad
and then
in Picard season two.
after the best of both worlds, that episode where he went back to the planet to visit his brother, it was briefly, very briefly touched on, very briefly.
Yeah, Renee did what their dad wanted him to do. Which where
Mm-hmm.
was Renee in that second season? Never mind. Let's not think about it too hard.
Let's not think about
Renee
it too
did.
much.
Renee did what their dad wanted to do, and Picard was the rebel. Is the whole
Exactly.
dynamic that we had.
Exactly. So when they got to Picard, they were trying to explore that more. Now, how they went about doing it and the direction that they went, that's where we have the issue at, and that's where it went off the rails.
Okay.
But by the time that uh, season eight of the Next Generation occurred, um, If you're sticking with me, that was season 3 of Star Trek Picard. If you're sticking with me, um,
Look, I don't fault you for saying that. I'm not saying I like Picard. It's just canon, and there were a lot of dads depicted on it. So like,
there
we see
were
Riker as
there
a
were because you
dad
see
in that
Rocker as
show.
a
Like,
dad, who is a
yeah,
very good dad, by the way, and I do want to touch on that
which
at some point. So,
yeah, okay, let's come back to it because I yeah
um, so yes, I agree with you here, but I believe the the writers were trying to make it to where it was like this build up to know that this was Picard's son. So they didn't want the characters to react in a way to where it was just like, oh frick, you're my dad. Like they didn't want to show that. Like they
yeah
wanted. I believe that Jack Crusher, uh, uh, J- Jack Crusher Picard. Um,
yeah. I go Crusher Junior because there's
yeah,
Jack Crusher. Wait, no, but it's not. Wait, how does that work?
exactly. How does that work? No, no.
I just caught myself in this in real time. Like I just why did I call him Jack Crusher Jr.? Because he's not Jack Crusher
He's
Jr.
not Jack
He's just
Crusher
another
Jr. He's
Jack
just Jack
Crusher.
Crusher.
All right.
So, like
Future's
Jack,
weird, man.
I believe Beverly did tell Jack at a young age of who his father was. So, I
Okay.
honestly believe that. And granted, I would have to rewatch that season, just that season. I'm not rewatching season 1 or 2. Screw that. I'm only rewatching season 3. uh, I
You
would
don't want
have
to go back to try to figure out that weird
Heck
Borg
no.
thing where there were
Heck
good
no.
Borg.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I could go through life without knowing that, or even trying to understand that. Um,
It's gonna be a retcon that I hope they retcon it. Like it's sitting here like someone fix
I
it,
truly
please.
hope so. Please, please. But like I truly, if I go back and watch it, I'm pretty sure I'm going to see like instances where like Jack looked at Picard and was just like, "I know who you are," but I'm not going to say
Hmm.
anything. And granted, like part of that was just for like story wise to get to that moment on the bridge where Crusher came up to Picard and just looked at him, was just like, "Hey, this is your son." Because you could
He
see it.
got warped.
It was probably one of my more favorite moments in that whole entire series. Because like the look that Beverly gave, and that is it's so great how Gates McFadden uh, really like showed all the emotion within her face and didn't say a
Hmm.
word, but it was just the emotion in her face and the look, and then to have Patrick Stewart uh, like play off of that. Like
Yeah.
it's the same thing that would have happened to me in real life if I had that situation occur and she looked at me in this really intense situation like, this is your son, and I'm just looking at her like, are you freaking kidding?
Yeah.
Fuck. It's like it's
Well, let's mark to bleep that one out.
a no, I'm leaving that one in
Well, and
there.
also it's a good use of the F word. Well, we maybe both of us will have one good one we can drop. Sorry, mom, don't listen to that episode. Um, Also, we as the viewers have, I think, pretty big suspicion, but I don't think
Yes,
they've told us for sure.
yes,
And we also all know through that look that Gates McFadden gives that,
yes.
oh, oh, this is what we're dealing. Okay, well now we gotta go save him.
Now I have to change everything that I was about to do
Yeah, exactly.
to go this route. Like, God dang it.
I
Oh.
know, right? Here's
So
what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take command. We're gonna take the ship in. We're gonna save this kid.
it was one of my favorite Star Trek moments, like that they finally did in season 3. It made me feel like, oh, this is
If
this
they
is something that could occur. Go ahead.
All right, total sidebar, and I don't know where we are in time, so I don't know if you're going to start,
Uh huh.
but I got to do the sidebar. If they had just given in from the beginning, and I think they were proud of themselves, so they didn't give in and make it just season 8 of TNG, but if they had made this season 1 and then added in Raffi and Soji and
Mm-hmm.
all, and like in the
Mm-hmm.
context of like
Mm-hmm.
doing that,
Mm-hmm.
the show would have been just off the charts
80
good.
times
But
better.
yeah, yeah. But they
80,
were like, we don't
100.
want it to be TNG season 8, and I'm like, yes, you do. That is what everybody wants.
Is literally what everybody wanted. Literally. Well, except for Steve Jobs, but we won't go there. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's yeah. I mean, I like him, but yeah, it's not like I agree like with everything. I'm
it's
like,
a
yeah,
very small amount that we disagree with him on it. I would
yeah,
definitely
a
admit
small
that.
amount.
And
He cares less about nostalgia and less about canon than I ever feel
yes,
like I could gin up. And I
with
understand why he does it because he wants more creativity, which I appreciate. But I'm like, also, give me the stuff that I want,
give me the
and
nostalgia
then get
sometimes.
creative.
Sometimes nostalgia isn't bad. Sometimes it
You're
isn't,
right.
especially if it's done in a very good way. And I feel like season 3 of Star Trek Picard did that in a very good way to give you that nostalgia, but also be able to portray a different storyline. And like the with Picard and Jack Crusher's relationship, you actually got to see that with the two of them. And the actor that played Jack Crusher, I feel like did a pretty good job of portraying him and showing like this dynamic of a kid that never really knew his father, but like you could still see certain similar traits with his father within him, but him more so moved like his mother.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was well done, and I thought their reconciliation throughout the show, which is how we got from Riker to here, was very similar to the Kyle Riker, Will Riker reconciliation, and probably a few other reconciliations.
True,
And
true.
they,
And,
they,
but I also think about like okay, when they really did get to learn one another, I do wonder if Picard really told him about like certain situations in his life, just like
There are four lights.
did he have that conversation with him? Did he tell him about that situation? Hey, so let me
I
tell you
don't think
about the
you get
time
to
where I
that quite
almost
yet.
broke.
He 100% broke. Why do we say almost? We are being gracious to him.
I'm saying almost because he didn't fully break. All right, give me.
He didn't break in front of that dude. He went to Troy and was like, "Yeah, I broke.
Yeah, I broke.
I
Oh,
broke."
100%. I was
If
about to
they
tell
hadn't
him.
walked in right then, like 2 more seconds,
I was
he
going to
would
tell
have
him
gotten
there
what
were
he wanted.
five. There was definitely five lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But
one day when we're feeding the audience their vegetables and we do our torture episode, we'll. No, that's not on the list. I don't think we have a torture episode on
Jesus.
the list.
But this is another reason why I think season 3 of Star Trek Picard was great because they also um, because you could parallel that with how what type of father Riker was,
Okay,
and
so
uh huh,
so technically, we see Riker most directly as a father in one
in
of the seasons that
in
you don't
season 1,
wish to,
yes, in season
yeah,
1,
to
yes,
acknowledge their existence when
I
he's
know
making
that,
the pizzas. Yeah, okay.
but and this is probably one of the only things that I liked about the previous seasons was depiction of how Riker was as a father and uh, not only him having a daughter but having a son that didn't live long
Make it. Yeah.
and having
Yeah.
to deal with that grief not only Riker dealing with that grief, not only Troy dealing with that grief, but also his daughter dealing with that grief at the same time, and then what that dynamic looks like. And you could see how great of a young woman his daughter was at that time and how well she was coming along even though she had to deal with that grief at a very young age. And but that goes back
Yeah, they're
to how Troy and Riker handled that situation. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, and they're a family that like are kind of built around it because I think even their daughter's name is the name of Troy's older sister
I
that
think
got
so.
unalived. Yeah, at some point. So yeah, they put healing at the center of things. I'm going to give you might throw me off the podcast forever. I'm going to give the season 1 Star Trek Picard writers some big credit here but I
And
don't know if it's
I
earned.
I gave them I gave them their so quote unquote kudos of the
You
direction that
gave
they
him
were
some
trying to
kudos.
go.
Yeah.
So we can do that with this particular episode, but we won't do that going forward. Keep going.
Not unless they earn it again. And even
Unless they
then, I haven't
fully
seen
earn it.
anyone. Yeah, I haven't seen anyone say this is what they're doing. I just think like this is probably what they were doing because Riker makes a choice as a dad that is one different from Worf. So maybe that's where he got it from. But also very different from what his father did in the face of grief, which was I'm gonna stop being a Starfleet officer and I'm gonna be here for all these people that need me in this moment to try to work it out. And I think he
Yeah.
stopped being a Starfleet officer just at the threat of it happening. I think they were trying to like help the young boy out, the John Luke, out when he quit Starfleet and went reserve and stuff. And so like he very much like reconciled with his dad, but it was also like, well, once a similar situation was presented, he's like, okay, I actually know to do something different. And I feel like it's kind of a colloquial thing that some of the best dads out there
Yeah.
either had that like great example that they can follow or had the example not to follow. And I think Riker got the benefit of being like, okay, I know in this situation that you need to stop Starfleet. And I think he had the benefit of also like being an illustrious officer at that point and like and all that stuff. So maybe it was a little bit, but like,
Well,
but like he,
I think that particular aspect piggybacked off of his father, like in
yeah, that's what I'm
how
saying. I
his
agree.
his father was when they were younger, and the loss of someone close to them both. Where his father threw himself into his work, and Riker was like, "I'm not going to do that here."
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. We
Okay.
are 100% on the same page. Like I don't know if they did it on purpose, but it was the exact contra position to what his dad did that made him have all that resentment. When he was in a situation, he's like, my kids aren't going to have that resentment towards me because I could just throw myself into being a captain all the time. But no, we're going to go to this planet, try to heal as a family, try to keep our son alive, and all that stuff. And I thought that was even at the time when I first watched it, and that episode's so late in the season one that I already knew season one was going to be bad. That I honestly kind of clocked that one in real time where I was like, oh, he did different than what his dad did. He made a conscious decision to not be his dad in this moment, even though he had reconciled with his dad. So, yeah, it was pretty cool.
Now that I'm thinking about it, like me reflecting on this now, I didn't have that same reflection at that moment when I saw that episode. Mainly because I was still focusing on the fact that, oh, this whole thing is crap. This is probably the one episode that I actually like am feeling right now. But everything
I mean, by the time they give us Riker and Troy, like, you're already like, I don't understand what the series is about or where we're going or what we're doing or why it exists. And I was so excited that when they announced it, and now I'm sad that I'm watching. That's where we're at by the time that episode happens.
Hilarious.
See, I don't bring up Picard because I love it. It's Star Trek that happened.
I truly feel like you bring up Picard just to piss me off. I truly feel like that.
Well, it also gives me that entertainment value. That's my equivalent to the There Are Four Lights. Like, if I can bring up Picard every episode.
Okay, so okay, I'm gonna have the There Are Four Lights skit every episode, and you're just gonna bring up Picard, Star Trek Picard every episode. Great.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should
I don't
be.
think so. I don't think so. I wholeheartly disagree with you on this one.
No, I commit. I'm only going to bring it up when it makes sense. It's just it's Star Trek that happened. It's still canon. Like until they do something with it. Like I can't. Yeah.
However, I'm one of the people that like will accept the fact that it is canon, and there's nothing that I can do about that, and not just complain online. No, this will never be canon. That is not canon. That is a completely, totally different alternate timeline. No, it can never be canon. Ever. Dude, it's canon. Just let it go.
It's canon.
Like, it is what it is.
Until they put something on TV that makes it not canon
Exactly.
anymore, then it's canon.
Just deal with it. Like it's not truly. It is not gonna kill you if you consider this as canon. Trust me, you'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be all right.
Let it go. Well, like as much of a person that I am that like grew up loving Star Trek and this being my all time favorite show of all time, it still will not make me angry if they went in a direction that I didn't like. Like, because
Yeah,
this is the people who own the property, the people who own the rights to this show want to go in a certain direction, and sometimes you have to give liberties for artistic points of views to occur, whether they hit the mark or not.
exactly, exactly. Man, me
It,
and you will never disagree on that.
it but you can criticize it. I'm not saying that you
Hmm.
should not
Hmm.
criticize it. You
Oh, you can hate it
definitely
all you
should.
want.
I criticize like we've said countless times. I've criticized Star Trek Picard season 1 and 2 countless times. I will criticize it until I am put in the ground and I can I cannot.
You're still gonna be criticizing that.
I'm probably going to be criticizing in heaven. Yes, you're completely right. Like God, why did you allow this to happen?
Why did you allow Star Trek Picard to be made?
And
Wow.
but that is perfectly fine. You can criticize something, but to go onto the level of saying it shouldn't exist, like, or no, not that it shouldn't exist. That's still along the same lines of criticizing, but that it doesn't exist. That it is not part of the world. That is not canon. Yes, it is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say, as much as I dislike season 1 and 2 of Picard, it is canon.
Yeah, and we got hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of other Star Trek
Exactly.
to watch. So you don't have to watch the thing you don't like. You don't have
Exactly.
to. You'll be fine.
But like that was an instance of where we saw Picard as a father, we saw Riker as a father, and actually got to see Riker learn from the mistakes of his father to be a better father within the future. And I'm glad that we got to point that out. But I would be remiss if we ended the episode without talking about one notable father, and that's Chief O'Brien.
Oh, okay.
Didn't think I was going that
Uh,
direction, did you?
yeah, a little bit behind the scenes, everybody. We have a list with a sheer metric ton of Star Trek
A
dads on it.
lot of them.
Possibly more dads than we can talk about. I mean, we just talked about Picard, and we didn't talk about LaForge being a dad in that. And we can't probably because we go to the deep end. So there's a lot of dads that you asterisk to talk about that we might not get to,
We're
and
just not gonna get to all.
yeah, it's just gonna have to be a part two. And I did not think on this list of dads that O'Brien is gonna be who you talk about, and I'm
The
very confused.
the main reason why I wanted
Okay.
to point out O'Brien's because you actually get to see him as a father uh, through two different series. One series where he was just a character that would show up here and there, and then another
Mm-hmm.
series where he was actually one of the main characters, and you saw his fathering more. So that's why I was like, I would be remiss to not
Okay.
point him out because he's always
Well,
been depicted as a uh-huh,
according to Lower Decks, he's the most important Starfleet officer ever. So
which I think is a really good joke, by the way.
I'm waiting for the canon folks
It's
to get
not
that one set
canon.
up.
It's not canon. But like okay in Star Trek: The Next Generation, you see O'Brien get married to Keiko. You also see Keiko deliver their first child, who is a young girl,
Molly.
Molly. Yeah, Molly.
Okay.
And then in going into Deep Space Nine, you have you still see Molly, but then they also have a second child, which is a son, which I can't think of his name off the top of my head
I
right
totally
now.
forgot. I thought they had two girls. I'm gonna
I
Google it while you're talking
I
because
like that. It was a son. It was definitely a son.
he must have not done anything on that show. Was he
Oh
ever a plot
he
point?
he was shown like very rarely.
Okay,
um,
because I had totally forgot about him. I mean, I knew he had a second kid, but I thought it was another girl. And yeah, man, I feel bad. I feel like
yeah,
that
because
Kiki Palmer meme where I'm like, sorry to that man. Like,
that was that
I
whole
don't know who
plot
he is.
point where Keiko was pregnant, and then because Keiko got injured in the shuttlecraft, the baby had to be transplanted into Kira.
Yeah, that was cool. We talked about that last week or
Yeah,
a couple weeks
a
ago.
couple of weeks ago, which
That was
we thought was very interesting because the actress playing Kira was actually pregnant with the actor that played Dr. Bashir's baby. So it,
okay.
how
This
the writers did that mental gymnastically is
oh,
I have
brilliant.
I have to give it up for him. I have to give it up for him. That's a
Yeah,
brilliant way of doing that. And I don't know if the actor that was playing Keiko was pregnant at one point and ended up losing the child. I definitely want to try to see if I can find something about that because
I
I
don't think
want.
so.
But it normally when you add that a child's being born in the series, they normally do that because the actress is pregnant
Ooh,
and
interesting. Well, I hope that didn't happen.
they need to show like why she's showing in the show. Uh,
Gotcha.
that's normally what they do. So that's why I'm wondering that. And as someone who uh, getting a little personal here, but as someone who has lost a child due to a miscarriage, um, I'm curious to know that. And
Yeah,
and
gotcha.
and like I said, the writers did a really good job of pivoting there and finding a way to depict. Oh, this is the reason why Kira is going to be showing to have a
Right,
child
right.
instead of just her being pregnant too. I believe it was the guy you didn't like, um,
The guy. Oh,
Vedic
Vedic
Baral.
Barile.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe she was dating Vedic Baral at the time,
I don't know
canonically.
if I don't like him, but he was just useless because he didn't achieve anything he was supposed. I mean, go
Yeah,
back to that
I'm
episode. I
putting
mean,
that I'm putting that as you didn't like him. Uh,
I'd have to go back to see how I really feel about it. Dude, looking back, I'm like, he was there for no. He was there just to have sex with Kira, or sorry,
love
have
interest. That
yeah,
literally just
be
love
a love
interest.
interest. I know we can't say the S word on the internet because of laws and whatnot. Okay.
Well,
Um,
mainly because of YouTube's way of like portraying mature content versus
well,
what's
but
good for kids.
they only are doing that in response to trafficking laws that were passed by Congress. That like even
Oh,
people who are
really?
trafficking, yeah,
I
even
didn't
people
know
who are
that.
trafficking, yeah, even people who are trafficking advocates are like, most of this law doesn't make any sense. So like, you know,
Interesting.
I'll I'll look up more detail on it because I don't want to be out of pocket because trafficking is a serious thing. But like,
Oh,
I've
100%.
yeah, but I've heard a lot of criticism about these laws where maybe they took like um, a mallet where a scalpel would have done, and so yeah, well, but
Get
that's why
out
we
of
can't like,
here. Our Congress
yeah.
doing that? No. They
I
have
mean, look,
they have never done that before. I don't I refuse to believe that.
well, I mean, it's clearly a mistake because we're always sending our best people to Congress,
Always.
the people with the best
Always.
judgment, and always put the people's will and best needs up front.
Always.
And they're always so young and fresh-minded
The best
and
people are
adept. Yeah, that's
always
only
voted in.
and
Yes.
international people. That's all we do in the United States.
Yes. We
It's
get it
just
right
always the best people.
100% of the time.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. I
if
think I'm
you
going to go cry
cannot,
now. Actually,
if you don't understand sarcasm, because I know there are people in this world that don't understand sarcasm. All of this is 100% sarcasm.
I was going to say, can we take another break so I can go cry for 30 minutes? I'll try to keep it to 30. It might go an hour.
Oh man. Oh man.
Okay, so
But getting back to
the second,
O'Brien.
yeah, the second O'Brien child's name, and y'all forgive me, I'm from Tennessee, so like we have generally good hearts, but we don't do too well with words sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
First off, I think his name is cool given how he's born in the series. Um, his name is Kira Yoshi, I think
Yeah.
is how
Oh
it's
yeah, that's
pronounced.
right. Yoshi.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yoshi O'Brien.
Yes.
Yeah, I
So
think I got that right. So, God,
it's,
I don't want to get canceled, but
but they did
mispronouncing this.
depict throughout the series, even the times in TNG where it was shown, and then pretty much all throughout D39 that O'Brien was not only a good and sympathetic husband, but also a good father. And like, granted, like one of the things that I do like about Deep Space Nine is how, even though I think Keiko is uh, go back to our one of our previous episodes where we talked about useless characters in Star Trek. I do feel like that she was a useless character and wasn't utilized the best way that she could have been. However, having her as the wife to O'Brien also showed that even in the future, where it's supposed to be perfect, that even married couples have fights, don't agree
Hmm.
on every single thing, and sometimes you have to come down to a point where someone needs to make the compromise. Somebody needs to create an idea of being able to fix the situation they currently have. And with Keiko being a botanist on board Deep Space Nine that really didn't need a botanist, and she ended up becoming a teacher, and O'Brien leaned into that to help her become a teacher. And then when that ended up falling, O'Brien went into the whole, uh, well, let me see what else she could do that she can like stretch her botanist legs, and found that whole assignment where she was going could go back and forth to Bajor when it comes to certain studies dealing with plants and how to grow them in specific areas and stuff like that, which I thought was a good way of showing how O'Brien was being a good husband in that area. Like she voiced her concerns of what she had and like how she was feeling, and he helped to try to find like something that helped rectify that situation, regardless of whether the fact that he was going to be without her for, and also Molly as well for times.
Yeah, their biggest. Also, I was trying to look up what you were asking about earlier while you were talking,
Mm-hmm.
and I just learned that Rosalind Chow, one of the actresses that played Keiko, which I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand. There's three actresses listed on who played Keiko, and I'm like, I don't
Really?
remember anyone besides her.
I
Yeah,
don't.
I don't know what in memory Alpha's going with that. I only remember her,
You gotta make
so
me
I don't know
look
if there's
that
like,
up. Wow, that.
yeah, that's weird. But like the actual actress, her first credit is on the Lucille Ball series. Here's Lucy, and if you don't know, there's no Star Trek without Lucille Ball. I Love Lucy, like basically created Star Trek.
Uh-huh.
So it's sorry, that's a weird tangent, but like every time I see Lucille Ball, I'm like, oh, that's the mother of Star Trek, and Rosalind Cho's like first credit is on there. What I was coming in to say that's not a tangent was the only real episode I remember like the O'Brien's dynamic is I think you're 100% dead on. Like they're two people trying to figure out
Mm-hmm.
hold this thing together so that their kids could have the best chance at life. The only real episode I remember them parenting is that like Wierd episode where like Molly falls into a time cave or something. Like it's
Yeah.
one of like one of
Yeah.
the one of the rare clunkers I think in DS9. I don't remember liking that
Yeah.
episode. And like she ends up being like grown up Molly, but she's like a caveman at
Yeah,
the
because she
same
grew up by
time.
herself.
Yeah, yeah. So they're like trying to like show like how they're parents as adults, and I do think O'Brien does step up to the plate there to try to make it work. But then they end up turning her back into Kid Molly, which I don't know if that's ethical. I mean, well, we'll get to the two Vix episode at some point,
Well,
but
well,
like it's
but granted, the reason why they were able to get Kid Molly back was because they decided at the very end of the episode that it would be best to send Molly back to the dimension that she was stuck in for years because she wasn't doing well back in where she was, and
yeah.
they pretty much it was a uh, we need to let her go for the betterment of her because she was
Which what a
not.
choice.
It's a huge choice. It actually shows the type of parents that they were, that they come down to a choice of being able to let go of their daughter and not didn't even know that they were even going to get their daughter back, but because she was better in this particular area that she was in, and she pretty much grew in that area, like I have to let her go. Don't know if that was the situation that I would make. I mean, I don't know if that's the decision that I would make in that particular situation, but
But
that's what they did. And when older Molly went back, she found younger Molly, and because it just so happened that I guess there was some like time dilation with that,
hmm
so she sent Molly back through that portal
oh yeah, I remember
before
that
it
part.
closed,
Yeah,
and that's how they
yeah.
got young Molly back.
So okay, that makes sense. I think one of the things that I think about when I think about parenthood, which is a totally theoretical exercise, because I can't explain to you how little interaction I've had with children. You've had much more interaction with children than me, so I've like literally only think about it every once in a while. But I do think of two aspects of it, which is sacrifice,
Hmm.
no, but not even a noble sacrifice, but just an empathetic giving to someone else
Hmm.
because you brought them into this situation and you need to like make sure that they turn out okay. And then I think there's like just a loss of control, which I think as someone out here
Yes.
who's still as someone out
Yes.
here who's still dating, like some of y'all can't even accept loss of control when someone plans a date for you. Well, anyways, we'll do that episode later. But anywho, I think a lot of people can't accept the loss of control and sacrifice that comes with parenthood, and it's like on some levels, if you want the affection, the legacy,
Hmm.
and the ability to have that relationship like you would maybe have wanted to have with your parents or did have with your parents, like that's what you're signing up for. And I think in that moment, the O'Briens really show like, yeah, we could keep her here forever, and I don't mind that she went from probably what 6 to 18
Yeah.
overnight. We're gonna love her, and like that's the sacrifice we're willing to make. But the sacrifice that needed to be made was like she really only knows how to survive here, and like we can't undo it at this point. And
Yeah.
recognizing your own limitations and loss of control, and that I think in that sense it does make the O'Briens together, but also Chief O'Brien, who's a fixer, wants to fix everything,
Hmm.
a good dad. So yeah, I think that's a good note from that episode. But I will admit I'm struggling on other episodes where I'm trying to think of him acting as a father. In particular. Do you have any other ones in mind, or
The
like?
only other one that stands out to me is when he had his whole, the episode where he got not necessarily falsely accused. He
Mm-hmm.
got reprimanded way too quickly than what he should have been in that
He
particular
got
situation.
sentenced, and you could execute the sentence. I think they did this in Voyager too, but like
Oh yeah,
his
they
sentencing,
did.
like his sentencing and no his conviction and sentencing all happened in like a week, and
Yes,
so like he had
yes,
memories of being in prison for like 20 years and then had to come home from it and like freak his kids out.
Yes, yes, and I don't know why that episode stands out to me, but it still showed like even when he had his blow up moment with Molly because of what he was dealing with at the very end when he was reconciling those feelings and being and getting to a point where it's like it's time for me to move on. You still showed Molly coming up to him and like hugging him, so which still shows and depicts to me of like the type of father that he is, even though it wasn't fully on screen of everything that we saw that he did for Molly. It still showed that he was a great father to her.
Oh yeah, he's never shown as anything else, and I think that shows an aspect of fatherhood that we've kind of not kind of, but I think we've hit directly on, which is like which I don't know how you do as a parent because like I said, well, I'm not saying it for a 15th time, but like I don't know how you do it as a parent when there's something like bad, wrong going on with you, and you got to regulate as an adult, but then you got to regulate a child, and then they show you kind of like, well, children are kind of just accepting because you're there,
It's it's
like you got to get
very
yourself fixed, you know.
it's very difficult, and granted, like I'm also speaking from someone who doesn't have children. Like I just discussed that we had my wife was pregnant at one point in time. We lost the child, but I am a godfather to multiple children. One of them is now a young adult in college, and one of the things that she has taught me uh, is that she loved the fact that I was just present and there
Hmm.
and willing to be there when she needed me to be. So, the way that I look at it, or at least from this particular experience, is just the fact of like, you're not going to 100% always get it right. There are going to be things that you're going to do wrong. But the fact that you are present and are trying, a lot of times the children will grow up to understand that and see that and really appreciate what you've done for them. Heck, I tell my mom all the time that it's amazing of what she was able to do with help raising not only me but my other brothers as well, and we turn it out the way that we have become. Um,
Yeah, and
mhm.
I can think back on times as an adult when I'm pretty sure like if you could like call cut and take a second take, my dad probably taking a second pass at
Mhm.
something, right? But it doesn't change what I think about my father at all because I'm like, well, but there's all this other good, and then also he was always there, and
Mhm.
yeah, I like kind of jumping back into my child mind. It's just like you know he was there like when I needed him. Like like the mistakes kind of, fortunately for me, like kind of just like wash away, and I don't really, quite frankly, remember a ton of them. Um, so I think you're right. Like I don't know, man, you're kind of talking me into. I need to get out here in these streets and find my person so I can take a crack at it. No, well, no, I think all that's true, but like getting out in
Oh,
these streets is the funny part.
when I think about it now, a lot of this stuff didn't matter. And like when I think about like the issues that I had with my father and that level of anger that I had before we reconciled, and what I eventually ended up telling him was just the fact that like you just wasn't there at certain particular times of my childhood that I really wish you were. Like regardless of
Yeah, that's
whether
so
you would have
yeah.
done the right thing in that moment, whether you would have said the right thing in that moment, that's besides the fact. If you were just there, it would have meant
Yeah.
a lot to me.
It's interesting. That is so universal. That have you seen the Thunderbolts?
I have not. No, no, I have not. I actually, the funny
Oh,
thing is, I actually saw like something about that today, and I was just like, oh man, I haven't watched that. I guess I'm just waiting. It should be out on
it's good.
digital now for me to watch.
Yeah. Wait for digital. Like, I think I said that at the time. I'm like, this is a great movie. I can wait for digital. I think that's why it didn't do so well at the box office, because it was clearly something that would have done great just as a streaming release. But anywho, um, not to spoil it, because I think you're going to enjoy it when you watch it. Um, but one of the climactic moments evokes the themes of what you just said. Like, not not quite
Mm-hmm.
word for word, but definitely bar for bar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's between two characters in that movie that have that relationship, or even not really have that relationship. Like, God, we didn't even get into like too much into adoptive or step parenting here,
We have
but
it.
like, but yeah, it's that just being there and just doing your best in that moment is probably what your kid is going to remember more than anything else,
Mm-hmm.
than even if you just totally effed it up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's probably what they're going to remember, unless, which, going back to a point you made, you're a terrible person and you did something just objectively intentionally evil
Yes.
in that situation. If you're a normal good person trying to put out good intentions out here, probably what they're going to remember is you being there more than what you actually did.
And to your point, like there are multiple other fathers that we can discuss, and we will probably be here for another 2, 3, maybe 4, 8 hours, to just discussing about it. Like even the time when Kirk became a father, Sulu, uh, when they showed him becoming a father. Um,
Oh
Heck,
yeah, the list is.
Paris
But
Paris, which is another good one. We're not talking about the salamanders episodes. You can get that out of your head. Not that one. When him and Balana actually
I forgot
have
about
a
my
child.
parenthetical on the list. Okay, more behind the scenes, guys. I forgot I wrote this, but I wrote Paris, parentheses, obviously not just a dumb salamander thing.
But I had to say that because I felt like somebody was going to bring up, oh, we talking about when he became a salamander dad? No. No one likes that episode. You know good well no one likes that episode. Don't even bring it up.
Oh man, and we got. I mean, I don't want to ruin the future episode, but I forgot that I even put Stamets and Colber to Adira, the whole
Yeah.
LGBTQ plus
Yeah.
fatherhood adoptive situation.
Adoptive.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my god, yeah.
Rom, which we touched on it a bit when we were talking about Jake. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like, yeah, Rom was also another good father that we could have discussed. There's a whole slew of them, really, and even by I mean, we talked about Ben Cisco. We didn't even talk about his father. That
Oh man,
yeah. So th-
showing the lineage, like I was talking about with my
hmm
grandfathers. Yeah,
hmm
yeah.
So there are a whole slew of fathers that we could talk about, but this episode has already gone on pretty long.
Oh, can I close a non sequitur that we had
Sure.
because I got to the bottom of it? The multiple Keikos. There's an episode where Keiko's mind's being read by like some random ambassador group with
hmm
like a evil person in it, and they show a young Keiko's hands, and that In Memory Alpha gave that actress credit.
Oh.
And then more fun, there's a young Keiko played by someone named Caroline Junko King, I think, a UK actress who I guess was very young at the time. It's the
hmm
episode Rascals, where
Oh,
her,
when she was
Ro,
younger.
and yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
she gets credited for being Keiko. That's why there's three Keiko actresses listed. There's
Okay,
the one that we
that
know,
makes perfect
and then
sense.
two younger ones. Yeah, because I was confused. I was like, "Who is this?"
Because I'm like, I was even trying to like, in my multiple remarks, did I not check to see if like there were two different actresses playing her? I was, it was actually seriously, if I'm gonna say this, it was actually one of those situations where I was like, am I a racist?
I know. That's the first thing that I thought. I immediately thought that. I was like, oh my God, there's been 3 different Asian women that played Keiko, and I never
And I
noticed.
never noticed this.
Like, holy crap.
So I'm glad you put that one to bed. Thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly why I looked it up. I'm like, I got to know what happened here. I know there's not 3 different adult. I know it's not an Aunt Viv situation where it's just 2 different black women playing the same role. I'm like, there's got to be a reason.
I don't know if whenever I get to the point of editing this episode, I don't know if I'm going to leave this in here, but I'll have to really like think about this.
Well, we ended up not being racist. We were concerned we were going to be racist, and then I looked at the information, and it turns out we weren't racist. We just
Sure.
didn't remember that, like, she was portrayed 2 different times by 2 different actresses. So,
True.
phew. Thank you, God.
So this is our part 1 of discussing fathers in Star Trek. We will more than likely come next year around Father's Day have a part 2 on notable fathers in Star Trek. And hopefully by that time we would have already rewatched the original series, so we can
Oh, boy.
bring out.
By next year?
That's well, I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping. You don't think we'll? I feel like we can. We can do that.
There's not 90 weeks between now and next year, just FYI.
We could do it. We could do it, Patrick. All right, or at least be like a few episodes in. Okay.
Okay, a few episodes in, I will take that.
Like at least a season or 2. Like,
Yeah. Okay, more randomness. Because it's a Father's episode, I have to say it. I clicked on the link for Rascals. And it first aired on my dad's birthday in 1992.
Oh, that is
Full circle.
Oh, that is very interesting. That is very interesting. That's hilarious.
I looked at the first air date, and I'm like, I can't believe it. That is my dad's birthday.
Well, I want to say I appreciate everyone who's come to listen to this episode. I appreciate y'all, and once again, apologize for us being late with this particular topic. But next week we're going to have more of a stronger topic than what we've had previously in the past. That could get into some pretty heavy stuff. We're still going to try to point out some lightheartedness to it, but as you all know, with it being an episode geared towards racism in Star Trek, that's going to be kind of difficult, and we don't want to seem insensitive in certain areas, but we definitely will try to make things kind of lighthearted in certain times of the episode.
Usually I wait till Saturday to do the research. I'm going to do the research during the week this time. I don't want to...
Yeah, this is one of those topics where we can't skimp on the research and wait until the last minute to do so.
I know. I'm just saying I don't want to be Saturday night pouring myself a beverage and just because like some of them are like, oh, it's technology and this, and it's like just kind of a little uplifting. Even the Father's one, even though this was a heavier topic, was still kind of like,
heck,
okay, I can get through this. But I'm like,
the fascism episode.
Yeah. Well,
like we could still make some lightheartedness with that one as well, but this one, seems that we were both black men and have both been impacted by racism. It is going to be a topic that's going to be not only difficult to discuss, but also to crack jokes about.
Kira, what did you say was the episode after that one that we're doing?
We haven't discussed though what we're going to do after that. We're probably going to have to go back to like a very funny episode, which
That's
we'll
why I was
definitely
asking.
discuss offline.
we've hit the readers thinking about their relationships with their parents and what's good, what's not good, and didn't even get to all of it. And then we're going to jump into racism, which I think we've only really, I mean, we've talked about a lot here, but like
We have.
only really dove into in the Ad Astra per Aspera episode, and now we're going to like get deep into it. So yeah, I think we're going to have to go. But don't skip next week's episode, especially.
Do not. Do not.
Especially if you have been avoiding racism as a topic, because it's going to be good. It's going to be Star Trek, and we'll all get through it together.
And
That's
we have unique perspectives as both being black men on this. And what we're going to do is like pretty much point out how Star Trek handled this topic throughout the series, throughout the multiple series that Star Trek has created. So I really want y'all to join us for this one. And even with us being a week off from Juneteenth, we also have 4th of July coming up. So it's like in this nice area in the middle where it's
hmm
still apt for us to talk about. Because when we're talking about 4th of July, the independence of America, not everybody in America um, when we when we declared our independence from the UK, not everybody in America was free.
yeah.
And regardless of how you feel about that, that is a fact. That is true. And there's not anything that you can like say against that. Go ahead.
This is if you look at this whole kind of 3 4 week run around Juneteenth and the 4th of July, it's a great time to think about what it means to be an American and how we got here and what we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having a racism episode fall right in between that, I'm hoping that it helps frame that type of stuff up for people who hadn't really thought about it in a way with Star Trek that they can really engage on. So I'm looking forward to it, even though I know some of the jokes we make live, we're gonna have
Yeah.
to. Man, there's gonna be a lot of. I I might have to have someone here be like, I'm about to make this joke. Is this gonna? Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go for it.
It's probably the most real you're going to hear me talk out of all the episodes. So, uh, because we both have a lot that we want to say about this particular topic, and especially how it relates to systemic racism in America currently. Uh, so, like I said, I'm looking forward to this episode. This was 100% my idea to do this particular episode. Uh,
Yeah, and look, if you're sitting out there wondering where we are in race relations, and you want a prospective look about what racism is and stuff, talking about what racism is in the 24th century or how it's portrayed by people writing currently about how it's portrayed, like in the 24th, 25th, or
mm-hmm.
wherever Discovery ended up, century, 31st
29th, I
century,
believe.
or 29th, yeah. I think it's a great place to come for it. So I know we're both caping for this episode because we know it's going to be heavy and not used to what we're doing, and we don't want people to fall off. But like, come back next week, and then we promise it'll be some BS the next week.
The next week,
We'll
yeah.
find something
Following week,
lighter to talk about.
we'll definitely talk about something that's like going to be more lighthearted and funny. But appreciate everybody for coming by. Please comment. Please like and subscribe. I appreciate everyone who has joined us, and please join us for next week. Do not skip this episode. But like always, we're going to end with that wonderful quote from Jean-Luc Picard.
It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life.
Thank you for joining us. Everyone have a wonderful week.